Chapter: Secrets Unlocked. Back at the sphere, Theo sat in the dimly lit briefing room, his fingers rapidly tapping on a console. The room hummed softly as holographic glyphs hovered above the table, glowing faintly in the cool air. Ina's voice resonated in the room, calm and efficient. "Theo," she said, "I've recorded most of the historical data from the archives. However, several of the crystals remain locked. They appear to require DNA authentication to unlock their contents. It's possible they contain classified or sensitive information specific to Atlanteans." Theo leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temple. DNA-locked data, figures. It's like they thought of everything, even thousands of years ago. "Keep monitoring the data we have, Ina. Let's work with what we've got." The door slid open and Lena entered, holding a cup of coffee. "Burning the midnight oil, Theo?" she asked with a teasing smile before noticing the intricate glyphs floating in the air. "What are you working on?" Theo gestured to the holograms. "The glyphs from the library archives. Check this out." He pointed to a specific glowing symbol. "Their language isn't like ours. They don't use words. Each glyph conveys an entire story. One symbol can communicate what would take a whole page of text to explain in English." He glanced at Lena, his excitement barely contained. "They called it Athari. It wasn't just a script. It was an art form, a living language that evolved with their technology." Lena tilted her head, her brows furrowing as she studied the patterns. "So, what? They compress stories into these shapes? How does that even work?" Theo smirked, tapping a glyph on the console. A holographic image sprang to life above them, showing a detailed scene of Atlanteans working together in a bustling city. The visual came with a voiceover, Ina's translation, detailing the harmony and purpose behind their work. "See?" Theo said. "One glyph gives you all that. It's like a visual and emotional shortcut. They didn't just write, they conveyed meaning, emotion, and history all at once." Lena stared at the hologram, shaking her head in awe. "That's insane. No wonder it's taking us so long to decode it all. It's beautiful, though?" Theo nodded. "It is, and look at this." He tapped a command and the hologram shifted, revealing a blueprint with precise geometric patterns, strikingly similar to the pyramids of Giza, yet more advanced than any recorded Egyptian architectural plans. Lena's jaw tightened. "Is that what I think it is?" Theo smirked. "The pyramids of Giza! The Egyptians built them, but the principles behind their design? Those go back much further than we ever realized." Lena frowned, skepticism creeping into her voice. "That doesn't make sense. The pyramids were built around 2600 BCE. That's thousands of years after Atlantis fell." Theo tapped the console again, and the hologram shifted to display a recording from the Atlantis archives. The image showed Atlantean scholars standing alongside early Egyptian builders, sketching calculations in the sand, pointing toward the stars and mapping precise alignments. "Historians aren't entirely wrong," Theo said simply. "The pyramids were built by the Egyptians, but they didn't come up with the idea alone. The geometric precision, the star alignments, the way they seem to resonate with natural energy, it all suggests that their builders were working with knowledge passed down from a far earlier time." Lena leaned closer, her eyes wide with astonishment. "So, the pyramids weren't just monuments. They were something more?" "The pyramids weren't just tombs," Theo said. "Their precise alignments, their mathematical relationships to celestial bodies, these ideas didn't emerge in isolation. The Atlanteans understood these principles thousands of years before, and over generations that knowledge may have shaped how ancient builders thought about large-scale architecture." He brought up another hologram cycling through locations recorded in the archives. The hologram displayed the towering T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe, carved with animals and celestial symbols. Theo gestured at the projections. "They didn't construct it, but they taught the people who did. Atlantean knowledge of astronomy and energy alignment influenced early civilizations, guiding them on how to track solstices and equinoxes." Lena shook her head in wonder. "They were helping humanity understand the stars long before recorded history." The next hologram showed a sunken coastal village, its foundations still visible underwater. "Atlat Yam," Theo explained. "The Atlanteans guided settlers here, teaching them how to build structures that could withstand floods and tides. Their understanding of climate and engineering helped early civilizations thrive in coastal regions. The hologram shifted to the terraces of Gunung Padang, massive stones strategically placed on a hillside. This site is older than anyone thought, Theo said. The Atlanteans introduced early engineering techniques, teaching civilizations how to harness the Earth's natural energy fields by placing stones in specific geometric patterns. The hologram showed vivid cave paintings of animals rendered in stunning detail. The Atlanteans weren't just engineers, they were storytellers, Theo said. They shared artistic techniques, guiding early humans on how to use pigments and preserve their history. The hologram displayed a settlement nestled in a lush valley, a thriving society ahead of its time. They didn't just guide builders, they helped the first settlers in the Americas adapt, Theo said, teaching them how to read landscapes, farm, and coexist with nature. Lena leaned back, shaking her head. This changes everything. The Atlanteans weren't just isolated to their city, they shaped the world through knowledge, not conquest. So all these structures date back to before 9600 BCE, right? Yes, and there's more, Theo added, pulling up another hologram. The underground cities of Derinkuyu, the Inca stonework at Sacsayhuaman. All of it. They didn't leave monuments to themselves. They left behind knowledge. Lena stared at the images, her voice filled with awe. This isn't just history. This is proof that everything we thought we knew about ancient civilizations is incomplete. Theo nodded, a smile playing at his lips. And we're only scratching the surface. Imagine what else we'll find once we unlock those DNA-locked crystals. Lena placed a hand on Theo's shoulder, her eyes gleaming. You've outdone yourself, Theo. This is history rewritten. Theo smirked, leaning back in his chair. I know, and we're just getting started. Lena frowned, still skeptical. But wouldn't they want future generations to remember them? To learn from their wisdom? Theo's expression grew serious. Maybe. But think about it. If they had left obvious signs, symbols, or records, what would have happened? Later civilizations might have worshipped them as gods, misunderstood their intentions, or even worse, weaponized their knowledge for conquest. Lena leaned back, considering his words. So they just gave the world tools and hoped we'd figure it out without destroying ourselves? Theo shrugged, a small smile on his lips. Pretty much. The ultimate act of humility, don't you think? They didn't sign the painting because the masterpiece wasn't about them. It was about the world they were trying to help create. He turned back to the hologram of the Great Pyramid of Giza, enlarging the image to reveal faint grooves and symmetrical patterns along the stone surfaces. Look at this, he said, pointing at the markings. These stones weren't just cut and dragged. They were shaped with a precision we still can't fully explain today. The Atlanteans understood energy manipulation, which might explain how later civilizations developed techniques that seem beyond their means. Lena frowned slightly, leaning closer to the hologram. You're saying they guided these civilizations in ways we still don't understand? Theo nodded, his tone confident. Exactly. They didn't need to physically build anything. They introduced principles about geometry, astronomy, energy. Those ideas lasted even when Atlantis didn't. Lena exhaled, shaking her head. And yet, they didn't leave any clear traces. No signatures, no records linking them directly to these places. That was deliberate, Theo replied. They didn't want to dominate or be worshipped. They wanted to uplift, to guide, to help humanity flourish on its own terms. They believed in balance, in working with nature, not against it, and in empowering others rather than hoarding knowledge. As Lena and Theo continued their discussion, the door slid open and Kira walked in with Jace trailing behind. Kira, holding a datapad, paused as she caught sight of the holograms floating above the console. "What's all this?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. Kira's eyebrows shot up. "This changes everything. If this is true, it rewrites history. Everything we thought we knew about these ancient sites was wrong." Jace crossed his arms, grinning. "I don't know, I'm kind of disappointed. I thought aliens built all this stuff." "No aliens? No fun. Without ET, what's the point?" Lena rolled her eyes. "Seriously, Jace." Theo chuckled but waved it off. "Sorry to ruin your fun, Jace. No aliens. Just highly advanced humans who were way ahead of their time. Kira folded her arms, looking at the holograms intently. So, Theo, what about Plato? He's where all our stories about Atlantis come from. What did he get right and what did he get wrong? Theo leaned back, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Plato got some of the broad strokes right. Atlantis was a powerful and advanced civilization. It had incredible technology, vast influence, and a culture deeply connected to the natural world. But where he got it wrong, he painted them as greedy, war-hungry, and arrogant, a society that brought about its own destruction by angering the gods. They weren't like that, Kira asked, tilting her head. No. Theo replied firmly, pointing to a specific glyph on the console. From everything we've uncovered, the Atlanteans were kind, righteous, and deeply altruistic. They believed in harmony between people, nature, and technology. They didn't hoard power or wealth. They used their advancements to help humanity, not dominate it. Their downfall wasn't divine punishment. It was a catastrophic event they couldn't control. Kira's expression softened. So they weren't the villains of their story? They were, what? Guardians? Teachers? Exactly, Theo said. Plato turned them into a morality tale, but the reality is so much more inspiring. Jace gestured at the glowing glyphs. So, no warmongering Atlanteans, huh? They weren't out there conquering the world? Nope, Theo said with a grin. They were building it, piece by piece. Kira leaned forward, her curiosity deepening. How did they get so smart, so advanced? What made them different? Theo tapped a few buttons on the console, bringing up a hologram of a glowing metromite crystal. It's the metromite, or orichalcum, as Helena calls it. It wasn't just a power source. Prolonged exposure to it affected their DNA. It enhanced their cognitive abilities, their physical health, even their creativity. They lived longer, learned faster, and adapted better. Over generations, it made them into something more. Jace let out a low whistle. So that's why they never wiped each other out. Makes sense now? Meanwhile, back in our world, some politician gets called a spineless fraud and a disgrace to office on live TV. And next thing you know, missiles are flying, economies are collapsing, and a war breaks out just because someone's ego couldn't take the hit. Lena rolled her eyes. Jace! Jace shrugged. Tell me I'm wrong. The Atlanteans built a civilization based on knowledge and balance. We built one where a wounded pride could send nations into chaos. Theo smirked. Maybe that's why Atlantis fell, because they were too advanced to handle how dumb the rest of the world was. Jace held up his hands. Maybe we should have been dosing world leaders with metromite all this time. Might have saved us a few world wars. Kira blinked, clearly astonished. So their intelligence and advancements weren't just a matter of chance? Not at all, Theo replied. Metromite elevated them. But instead of using it selfishly, they chose to share their knowledge with the rest of the world. Lena folded her arms, still staring at the holograms. And yet, they didn't leave their name on any of it. Exactly, Theo said. They didn't care about credit. They cared about legacy, about giving humanity the tools to thrive.